China has called on all parties in the Korean standoff to stay calm and stop irritating each other a day after North Korea said the United States was pushing the region to the brink of nuclear war. The United States has urged China, reclusive North Korea's lone major ally, to do more to rein in its neighbors' nuclear and missile programs that have prompted an assertive response from the Trump administration, warning that the era of strategic patience is over. The United States has sent a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier to Korean waters, and a pair of strategic U.S. bombers flew training drills with the South Korean and Japanese Air Forces in another show of strength this week. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhang Shuang, asked about the bomber flights, the drills, and North Korea's response, stressed that the situation was highly complex and sensitive. The urgent task is to lower temperatures and resume talks, he told reporters. We again urge all relevant parties to remain calm and exercise restraint, stop irritating each other, work hard to create an atmosphere for contact and dialogue between all sides, and seek a return to the correct path of dialogue and negotiation as soon as possible. The flight of the two bombers came as U.S. President Donald Trump raised eyebrows when he said he would be honored to meet North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in the right circumstances, and as his CIA director landed in South Korea for talks. North Korea said the bombers conducted a nuclear bomb-dropping drill against major objects in its territory at a time when Trump and other U.S. warmongers are crying out for making a preemptive nuclear strike on the North. The reckless military provocation is pushing the situation on the Korean peninsula closer to the brink of nuclear war, the North's official KCNA news agency said on Tuesday. Tension on the Korean peninsula has been high for weeks, driven by concern that the North might conduct its sixth nuclear test in defiance of UN Security Council resolutions. The U.S. military's THAAD anti-missile defense system has reached initial operational capacity in South Korea, U.S. officials told Reuters, although they cautioned that it would not be fully operational for some months. China has repeatedly expressed its opposition to the system, whose powerful radar it fears could reach inside Chinese territory, just as Trump has praised Chinese President Xi Jinping for his efforts to rein in North Korea. It was widely feared North Korea could conduct a nuclear test on or around April 15 to celebrate the anniversary of the birth of the North's founding leader, Kim Il-sung, or on April 25, the 85th anniversary of the foundation of its Korean People's Army. The North has conducted such tests or missile launches to mark significant events in the past. Instead, North Korea held a big military parade featuring a display of missiles on April 15 and then a large, live-fire artillery drill 10 days later. Trump drew criticism in Washington on Monday when he said he would be honored to meet North Korea's young leader. If it would be appropriate for me to meet with him, I would be honored to do it, Trump told Bloomberg News. Trump did not say what conditions would be needed for such a meeting to occur or when it could happen. Clearly conditions are not there right now, White House spokesman Sean Spicer said. Trump warned in an interview with Reuters on Thursday that a major conflict with North Korea was possible, while China said last week the situation on the Korean peninsula could escalate or slip out of control. North Korea test-launched a missile on Saturday that appeared to have failed within minutes, its fourth successive failed launch since March. It has conducted 2 nuclear tests and a series of missile-related activities at an unprecedented pace since the beginning of last year. The North is technically still at war with the South after their 1950-53 conflict ended in a truce, not a treaty, and it regularly threatens to destroy the United States, Japan and South Korea. North Korea said on Wednesday an American man it had detained in late April, the third U.S. citizen being held by the isolated country, was intercepted because he was attempting to commit hostile acts. North Korea, which has been criticized for its human rights record, has in the past used detained Americans to extract high-profile visits from the United States, with which it has no formal diplomatic relations. Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday meanwhile spoke by telephone about Syria and about how best to resolve the very dangerous situation in North Korea, the White House said. North Korea has built islands containing secret military facilities to launch nuclear missiles without its enemies' knowledge. A total of 5 islands are now being used to house the facilities in the bay surrounding the city of Sahi, which is the Hermit Kingdom's main missile development and testing site. Some of the islands are natural, while others have been constructed, Damon Cook, lead research associate for geopolitical analysis group, Strategic Sentinel revealed. Dubbed the Sahi Islands by the group, he said the North Koreans may be using the islands as alternative launch pads as global intelligence agencies find out more and more about the main facility in Sahi. Writing in The Diplomat, he said, as Sahi's target value rises, the North Korean military may be dispersing its assets into nearby facilities. Firing exclusively from Sahi's resident Tongchang Ri launch facility during wartime would be a dangerously predictable, amateurish mistake. But constructing island launch sites would buck the common and cost-effective practices of building remote transporter erector launcher telephone pads hidden between mountains. The empty patches of land on the islands could feasibly be used to launch nuclear ballistic missiles, he said. He added, these empty lots could plausibly accommodate a North Korean ballistic missile and the telephone it rode in on. These tells, those vehicles so frequently touted in North Korean military parades, ballistic missiles stacked neatly on top, could disperse from their shelters and onto these various islands during times of heightened tension. These latest images were taken in December 2016, with Mr. Cook saying some features on the islands would not make them an optimum place for some of North Korea's missile launchers, and some of the structures do not appear to have any blast shield protecting them. However, he said the construction projects could have been completed in the intervening time. Mr. Cook added, the DPRK knows that during a war, firing exclusively from well-known sites like Sahi's resident Tongchang Ri launch facility would be a dangerous mistake. Most of North Korea's launch pads are located in between remote mountains all across the country, making it nearly impossible for its enemies to stop a ballistic missile strike in one go. The geopolitical expert said, if the United States and its allies launched a full-scale assault on all known North Korean military targets and somehow managed to strike all targets nearly simultaneously except one, the consequences could be thoroughly devastating. Just one lonely tell, hiding deep in the mountains, or on an island near Sahi, could launch a nuclear-tipped Nodong missile at Seoul or Tokyo and instantly cripple a U.S. ally. It is this concern that kept the Kim regime alive during the Obama administration. Building launch pads on the islands would be more expensive and less secure than having them on mountains, but North Korea's ability to carry out second strikes is preserved almost exclusively by the secrecy surrounding their missile storage and launch sites. Mr. Cook said there is still not enough available information to determine exactly what the new islands are for, but they most likely will be using them in a military capacity. He added, without question, key ICBM components will continue to be tested at Sahi, whether from an island or the Tongchang Ri launch facility on the mainland. The city is rising in strategic importance as North Korea focuses more and more of its efforts on mastering intercontinental ballistic missile (ICBM) technology. In fact, if North Korea follows through on its recent pseudo-threat to test a new missile every week, all eyes will be turning to Sahi very soon. An urgent warning about the nuclear threat posed by North Korea has been unleashed by the world's leading atomic watchdog. Yukiya Amano, head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, said he was worried by the progress Kim Jong-un's weapons were making. Citing satellite imagery of North Korea's Punggye-ri nuclear test site, he said the IAEA had concrete information that the nuclear program is going ahead. He also told Germany's Süddeutsche newspaper that the situation was very, very serious and urged that inspectors be allowed to enter the state. The regime of the present leader's father, Kim Jong-un, ejected IAEA inspectors in April 2009 and has not allowed them to re-enter it since. We have been watching for a long time, and since I am from Japan, I can assess the situation in the region well, said Mr. Amano. I have always been persistently of the opinion that the situation in North Korea is very, very serious. Asked if the threats from North Korea should be taken seriously, the diplomat was unambiguous. They are real. All the evidence shows us that North Korea is making progress, he said. That worries us. The security concerns that trigger this go beyond the region. North Korea has conducted 5 nuclear tests over its history, beginning on October 9, 2006. Under Kim Jong-un, there have been 3 nuclear tests, in February 2013, and January and September last year. However, the country only tested a missile, which exploded almost immediately after takeoff, from a naval base in the eastern city of Sinpo. Terror team, North Korea could unite with ISIS to wage war against US. 2 of the US biggest enemies could unite to wipe out Donald Trump, according to Shah claims. Military officials have named North Korea as the biggest threat to America's security as Kim Jong-un presses ahead with his nuclear missile program. The tubby tyrant has vowed to launch his ICBM at US heartland, reducing it to ashes. The US has also stepped up its campaign to remove ISIS completely from the map, after pushing the terror group back in Iraq and Syria. But a shock theory has claimed the 2 villains could pull their resources together to create a cocktail of weapons for war against the US. The nightmare scenario could see ISIS terrorists nuke a US city with a dirty bomb hidden in a suitcase. Dr. Patricia Doyle said, "We already know that Iran and North Korea have a long-standing working relationship. I wonder how much of the Iran-NK partnership is due to both countries' hostilities with the US. If those 2 get together, ISIS may be able to help North Korea with infiltrating the US, and a friendship between the 2 could be very valuable for both ISIS and North Korea." North Korea does have a spy network among the Korea community in the US. The spy network has mostly spied on the Koreans, checking for defectors from North Korea, and was seeking out any Koreans who might be working with the US. ISIS training could bring the North Koreans up to date on terrorism, such as assembling and placing suitcase nukes in crowded cities in South Korea and the US. There has been no indication that North Korea has the expertise to create a small enough nuclear warhead to fit in a suitcase. And North Korea showed this year its preferred technique for killing is poison, evidenced by the death of Kim Jong-un's brother, Kim Jong-nam. Dr. Doyle said, "A friendship between ISIS and North Korea could be exactly what the adage means: the enemy of my enemy is my friend." North Korea has branded the US terrorists while vowing to bring down US intelligence agencies from the inside. Speaking throughout the state-sponsored KCNA news agency, the North Korean government lashed out at the US after an assassination plot against Kim Jong-un was revealed. The North security officials said on Friday they believe terror cells sponsored by the CIA and South Korea's National Intelligence Service have seeped through the country's borders with plans to kill the Tubby's leader with biological weapons. "We will ferret out and mercilessly destroy every last one," the terrorists of the US CIA, KCNA reported. The statement also outlined Kim's plans to wipe out any possible sleeper agents living inside North Korea at the moment. Korean-style anti-terrorist attack will be commenced from this moment to sweep away the intelligence and plot-reading organizations of the US imperialists and the puppet clique South Korea. The report also claimed that the North is plotting to attack US and South Korean intelligence agencies. The North Korean government warned that the attacks will begin immediately. Kim Jong-un has caused outrage with claims it will carry out weekly missile tests in the face of US aggression. In response, Donald Trump has called for an early deployment of the THAAD missile system to safeguard from potential nuke attack. Meanwhile, the president's armada is steaming towards the Korean peninsula to confront Kim Jong-un. North Korea's Youth League has vowed to use 5 million children equipped with nuclear bombs to mercilessly wipe out the US and South Korea. The Kim Il-sungist Kim Jong-ilist Youth League has pledged to wipe out the enemies with invincible nuclear force amid rising tension with Donald Trump. The organization said they will annihilate all aggressors and provokers on the earth and display fireworks of the final victory. According to Kim Jong-un's officials, it is the will of the Korean youths to resolutely and mercilessly wipe out the US imperialists and South Korean puppet warmongers, and warned the earth will break if it launches a strike. A spokesperson for the Youth League added, "The large contingents of young people are now waiting for the final order of the headquarters of the revolution, keeping themselves fully combat-ready to mercilessly wipe out with 5 million nuclear bombs. The US imperialists should know that the earth will break if invincible nuclear force and the 5 million large contingents of young people equipped with nuclear bombs vent their wrath." They continued, upon hearing the news that the U.S. imperialists and South Korean puppet group of traitors are making desperate efforts to hurt the dignity of the DPRK North Korea and bring down its socialist system while openly talking about preemptive attack, 5 million youth vanguard of the DPRK are hardening their will to wipe out the enemies with the surging rages at them. In a show of military prowess, Kim Jong-un's troops launched hundreds of ballistic weapons to mark the 85th anniversary of the Korean People's Army. While the U.S., who have been building up its navy in the Korea Peninsula, tested a new anti-missile system on Tuesday. The USS Carl Vinson aircraft armada is also now within striking range of the reclusive state and is ready to be used if called upon, according to U.S. Admiral Harry Harris. The Youth League, established by Kim Il-sung, the founder of North Korea, is compulsory for all children between the ages of 7 and 13 and encourages children over 15 into production, construction and military service. The U.S. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis and the U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson released a joint statement which revealed President Donald Trump's strategy to conquer the Hermit Kingdom. The statement said, "We remain prepared to defend ourselves and our allies." The president's approach aims to pressure North Korea into dismantling its nuclear, ballistic missile, and proliferation programs by tightening economic sanctions and pursuing diplomatic measures with our allies and regional partners. American plans to tackle North Korea would force the U.S. into a war with Russia, Kremlin lawmakers have warned. U.S. plans to deploy warships to control seaports and shipping routes in the East Pacific have sparked fury from Russia. Vladimir Putin's lawmakers warned the plans amount to a declaration of war against the superpower as relations remain strained between Moscow and Washington. Congress approved a bill yesterday which aims to put pressure on North Korea by cracking down on shipping around the Korean peninsula. U.S. President Donald Trump has to sign the bill to enact the plan, but Russia said no U.S. ship will enter our waters. Strangling trade to and from North Korea is being attempted the U.S. in bid to force Kim to step down over his nuclear ambitions. Russia would brand any attempts by the U.S. to control their vessels as a hostile act, politicians said. Such a scenario is simply unthinkable because it means a declaration of war, said Committee for International Relations head Konstantin Kosachev. He added, the realization of this U.S. bill includes a proposed force scenario in which the U.S. Navy would conduct compulsory inspections of all ships. Russian ports impacted by the U.S. bill include Vodino, Nakhodka and Vladivostok. Russia has called for calm over the North Korean crisis amid fears it could escalate into a nuclear war. Putin's right-hand man Sergei Lavrov warned the U.S. faces disaster if it launches military action against Kim Jong-un. Trump has been taking a tough line on Kim after a string of missile tests in his quest for an ICBM capable of striking the U.S. U.S. President Donald Trump has to sign the bill to enact the plan, and it follows a phone call with Putin to the White House about North Korea on Tuesday. The U.S. administration will receive a symmetrical adequate response to any unfriendly steps toward Russia and our allies. In any case, no U.S. ship will enter our waters, said Deputy Head of the Committee Andrei Krasov. Lawmakers accused the U.S. of attempting to expand its jurisdiction all over the globe and treating Russia as the suspect of a crime. Russian bombers swept over Alaska again earlier this week as renewed tensions rise between the Kremlin and White House. Trump had been expected to warm up relations with Putin, but the two have been positioned against one another since the U.S. bombed Syria. Russia has shipped troops to the North Korean border amid fears of a U.S. strike to take out Pyongyang. Kim Jong-un's state media published a 2,000-word statement slamming U.S. activity in the Korean peninsula and promising victory for the DPRK. North Korea's military commentator declared the White House will be reduced to ashes as it claimed the U.S. was planning to destroy Pyongyang. 330,000 U.S. soldiers took part in military drills designed to rehearse an all-out war with the DPRK, it claimed. The piece concluded North Korea will retaliate and promised that the crime-woven history of the U.S. imperialists will be over. Kim's mouthpiece slammed the U.S. for ceaseless hostile policy as North Korea continues to quest for a nuclear ICBM. U.S. forces were lashed with a parade of insults, branding them murderous ogres, robbers, air pirates and warriors who master the occult arts. North Korea went on slam the US as a hotbed of evil which needed to be hit with an indiscriminate preemptive nuclear strike to transform the superpower into something that cannot come back to life again. It said the war drills Key Resolve and Foal Eagle were hideous state-sponsored terrorism which were the most vicious and adventurous in history. Tensions have peaked with North Korea amid fears Kim is readying for a sixth nuclear bomb test after a string of ballistic missile tests. U.S. President Donald Trump has taken a tough line on Pyongyang, sending an armada to take part in war games with South Korea and Japan. Both Russia and China have called for calm in the region as threat of nuclear war looms over the Korean peninsula. Congress voted through plans for further sanctions on North Korea, which Russia warned could be considered a declaration of war. North Korea's article published by the KCNA said, "This is a stern warning to the U.S. imperialists and their stooges running amok for aggression and war moves. The world will clearly witness how the crime-woven history of the U.S. imperialists will be over, how the despicable remaining days of the South Korean puppet forces will come to an end, and how national reunification, the cherished desire of the Korean nation, will be achieved." The editorial also praised Supreme Leader Kim's matchless pluck and iron will and said he was a man who defended the sovereignty and dignity of the country and the right to existence of the people. Published today, the piece ran under the title Key Resolve and Foal Eagle 17 Joint Military Drills Discover Heinous and Warlike Intent. Japan readying to arm itself with cruise missiles to face down North Korea, according to reports, as tensions heighten. Trump however seems throwing back on some his hard stance, speaking fondly of the chance to meet smart cookie Kim. Satellite images appear to show the North Korean nuclear site is ready, but Pyongyang have yet to deliver on threats of ceaseless tests. Kim's last missile test, launched last weekend, was deemed a failure despite claims of imminent war by the DPRK. The revealing photographs show North Koreans going about their everyday lives in April 2014, but all is not as it seems. One image shows a woman sitting outside a storefront, but there was only an empty building inside. Other shots show people waiting at bus stops, reading train timetables and taking a stroll through a public park. The pictures were taken in Pyongyang, North Korea by freelance photojournalist Gavin John, 31, from Calgary, Canada. "North Korea has always been an enigma to me and the rest of the world," he said. "Its openly hostile government, combined with an unparalleled secrecy, and a legacy of misinformation, all screamed for me to experience it myself and see how true or not these claims were. I've always felt there's more to the eye than what's been presented. Visiting North Korea is truly like stepping back in time to the Soviet Union in the 1970s. Everything from clothing, cars, and architecture were from a bygone era where the omnipresent presence of the state was always looming. Propaganda posters of glorious battles were in the places where advertising would be, and large flowing flags of North Korea hung off every street corner and building. However, I found everyday North Koreans a kind and gentle people where curiosity was the prominent reaction to my presence there. I tried to focus my images on these people, their interactions with each other and myself." Gavin, who shot the photographs with a D800 camera, didn't declare he was a journalist before entering the country and took pictures of military relaxing, something which is forbidden. "On the last day I was pulled aside and told I had been reported to the Ministry of Interior's police for suspicions of being a journalist," he recalled. "Needless to say, it was one of the tensest nights of my life talking my way out of a potential jail sentence for taking unauthorized photos. I dodged that bullet, no pun intended, by handing over all my memory cards and hard drive of my laptop over to the North Koreans. That is, except the one I hid and smuggled out of the country. I was told I was not welcome back ever again. North Korea is an unsettling place, that's for sure. In the week I was there was a constant feeling that not all we were seeing was quite as it seemed. Under the watchful eyes of our government minders, we were not allowed to stray more than 5 meters from them before being politely corralled back into the predetermined tour route. Yet, every now and then there were indications that there was in fact something not right. Glimpses of empty buildings behind a fake storefront or restaurants suddenly full of people mid-meal when minutes before were empty tables. Mr. John hopes his pictures can show that ordinary North Koreans are no different to anyone else. We're all guilty of our own preconceptions of North Korea, and much of it is false," he added. Both sides' propaganda clouds our ability to look at the country in an accurate way, and it's usually the first thing that people ask me about when they see the photos. It doesn't matter if you live in Calgary or Pyongyang, London or Mosul, we are all the same. North Koreans are one of the gentlest people I have ever met, and I bear a burden of sadness knowing that they live under such a harsh regime. We need to understand that the people who will suffer the most in the event of a second Korean War, regardless of outcome, will be the people of North Korea. I hold nothing but disdain for the government of North Korea, and nothing but admiration for the everyday people of that country. If people back home can understand and separate the two, then I have done my job.